theaters are moving quite slow in a lot of trends, and I think we had that chance during lockdown, but it was not used that well. So I think we're running a little bit behind, especially concerning digital formats.
We always look for labels. You go to a show and you want to understand if you're going into, is it dance? Is it theater? And maybe that's not really even that necessary anymore. You just jump into a place where maybe what you should be looking for is to be surprised. Tine, thank you so much for being here today. I would like to ask you, what does it entail for you to really stay so innovative in the scenic arts?
Thank you for inviting me. I think it's all about pushing art to the boundaries, especially in a world that is facing so many crises right now. And I totally believe that a theatre institution is the hub for experimental forms and for questioning the world's biggest questions, but maybe sometimes also the smallest questions. Follow trends, but also grab the questions of society as at heart.
When you think about scenic arts, the feeling we have is that you are not only thinking about dance or performance or music. In which way do you think you're pushing really the boundaries of these disciplines? The theater is definitely very well known for your innovative approach also to staging. So do you really think those boundaries within the different arts still really make sense? Or what is your approach to that?
We invite collaborators from all different fields. So it can be classical theater directors or emerging artists coming from the performing arts, but we also invite a lot of people coming from scientific backgrounds, for example, environmental practices, but also people who come more from visual arts or from architecture, from music. So we really try to blend in different disciplines to really shape something that is more representing our society. So I think that's why it becomes so interesting when you invite someone from a collective called Seeds that are working more on exomoons, and to bring them together with actors from our ensemble and to then create something very immersive where people can walk around and discover exomoons. Or when we build a sauna on stage, so we kind of create the whole universe of our theatre into a spa, and then people come to just enjoy sauna, but some people will come to enjoy a lecture on the critical aspects on wellness. And sometimes we just stage a very classical theatre format to attract people from all over the place. So I think that's a little bit our recipe, to be open to different art forms.
The feeling I have is that you come from an interdisciplinary background. You have a background in economics. You also studied political science. Of course, some training also in the performing arts. Do you think that has definitely shaped the way you think about scenic arts, the way you look into this discipline? And do you feel this is kind of like a trend we're seeing across different countries and different institutions, that this kind of more holistic and plural outlook into what should be seen on stage is impacting the way you see things?
My background is already so diverse, because for me, if you want to tell a story, you need to have different knowledges, not only in one format, not only theater. So I always quote Joan Didion, an American writer, who says, we tell each other stories in order to live, and I would say either in order to survive. And I think it really helped me to shift and to move in between disciplines, and having such a diverse network also with colleagues coming from different fields. And I think there is a little trend in going that direction, that people are more open to discover maybe even theatre in different formats, especially when it's not only having the label theatre. So people expect maybe, I don't know, a classical Hamlet, but what happens when you're surprised and you're encountering like a storytelling that is new to you, that is not the classical notion of theatre. Also, I think in times of attention economy, how do you gather people in a space, which is difficult nowadays when we're all constantly on our phones, which is like kind of the way of like telling us, we're all connected, but basically we're alone at home. So I still believe in the togetherness of theatre and bringing them together. And for that, I think you need to move a little bit in between lives, ideas, stories. to attract people from different backgrounds.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because I feel as an spectator, we always look for labels. You go to a show and you want to understand if you're going into, is it dance, is it theater, and maybe that's not really even that necessary anymore. You just jump into a place where maybe what you should be looking for is to be surprised and to maybe come out with different ideas, the ideas you had when you went into the theater place. What you just said, I think, helps me bridge very well to something I thought I want to ask you, and it's how has technology shaped the way we think about performing arts, but also the way in which we enjoy scenic art? What is your take on how technology, in a very holistic perspective, has or is transforming scenic arts?
I think it really changes the way how we tell stories, especially the speed of telling stories. Going with that pace of social media and the way of also movies are now cut, which is very fast and very much on attention and what's happening next. And I saw a very good theatre production in London by Alexander Zeldin called The Other Place, which was a modern adaptation of Antigone. He grabbed this way of how you can tell a story in a Netflix way of telling a story. And it was, I think, 70 minutes, pure joy, great actors, and the audience was so young and engaged. So I think this could be one direction. And the other direction is also do we need to have kind of a counterbalance, more like a meditative space of togetherness? So I think there are both ways, but I also think that theaters are moving quite slow in a lot of trends. And I think we had that chance during lockdown, but it was not used that well. So I think we're running a little bit behind, especially concerning digital formats. I'm not sure if theater really works only digital, because then, come on, you can go to the cinema. And I think theater is such a great medium, because in theater people come together in a very traditional form of togetherness, and they witness one moment. So there is this moment of something is kind of unfolding on stage. I still believe that the togetherness of being together in a room in theater will somehow survive.
Yes. It's very interesting what you're saying about, and I think we've all thought about this, how theater plays, or the scenic arts in general, how do the contents and the speed can really adapt to especially to the new ways, particularly that young audiences are used to, where it's very common now that you see youngsters that are watching a series while at the same time they're scrolling in their phones. It's like people are getting very much used to consume even a couple of things, even 3 things at the same time. Well, they WhatsApp at the same time. How are you connecting with your audiences? Who are actually your audiences? Do you think there's been a transformation of the kind of people that used to go to a theater?
It's an interesting question, because of course our audience changed a lot from 6 years ago, but I also would say there is not one audience. I think there are different sections of audience. We communicate to a certain community. For example, when we did a project called All the Sex I've Ever Had, which was with 6 local over 65-year-old Zurich people who talked about all the sex they've ever had, but it attracted a lot of people. And it was really interesting to see Gen Z coming with their parents and their grandparents. So it really depends on what we're staging. What we already managed in these 6 years is that we shifted from more a middle-aged white audience to a super diverse group of people. Younger people with different race backgrounds are coming, people with different class backgrounds are coming. It's a very mixed audience, and sometimes, of course, we also create for a certain bubble. It's fine that not everyone is always interested in one particular thing. The most important thing is that you have a balance.
Nowadays we have everything but certainties. I know this is a very ambitious, question to ask you about, but what are maybe your intuitions or maybe your wishes about how do you think this industry is going to be transformed? Do you think it's going to stay the way you're presenting it right now? Do you think it's going to be completely transformed? Will it disappear? How do you envision this? And maybe you even have some wishes for that future.
Well, that's a big question, right? So first of all, I would say theater will survive in some kind of form. It's a medium that is so old, and we hear this, our theater will die since, 2,000 years? it never died. So I think it will transform into a different notion. I think the next years will be crucial for the independent scene and also for the big institutions, because there will be a lot of cuts coming and fundings that won't be that rich as they used to be. So I think it will be very complicated, and I hope that our policymakers are courageous enough to not only enable the big names, but also to still support emerging young experimental formats, because I'm afraid that this might be falling off the table when you cut money, especially in forms of crisis. The most beautiful and most thriving art forms can grow.
You tackled into maybe the scarcity maybe of public funds that might be available out there, but do you think there's actually an opportunity to engage with the private sector and to get, other finance sources that could support, artists and theaters in this journey? What are your takes on that?
I'm a little bit afraid that maybe the private sector will enable the bigger names to become even more bigger. So I hope that the private sector is maybe filling in a little gap where the money goes to the people that actually need it and not goes to the people who already have the funding. And I know that a lot of artists are also ambivalent to build exactly that bridge. And what values are you then selling out, and for what kind of a return are you working? So I think there are profits, but also a lot of downsides.
Excellent. Let's hope your words, can inspire a few of them. I hope that in these moments of struggle, I think talent and creativity is also sometimes a fertile ground for, to flourish. And let's stay positive that things will be good, and we'll all be able to co-create an exciting and creative future for all of us. Thank you, Tine. It's been really a pleasure.
Thank you.